Uh-oh. Okay, we'll start with this. Today marks 2 years since Super Bantamweight champion Ellie Scotney became a world champion in what was the Shernikica Johnson fight. Shernikica Johnson, who was then IBF champion at 122 pounds. Ellie took the belt from her in decisive fashion. And a lot has happened since then. Ellie is a unified champion now at that same weight. Shernikica has since moved down. And both fighters have made the decision to sign to MVP. They are both now part of the same stable, making a rematch between them a distinct possibility. It wasn't something that was talked about before, but now that they're both there's no reason it shouldn't happen. But of course, they both have their upcoming fights to get through before it becomes about a rematch between them. Ellie's got to beat Yemi Mercado. Shernikica has to beat Sheeraz Metcalf. When it comes to Scotney versus Mercado, I think the devil's going to be in the details. I think Ellie's going to beat her with the subtleties, the little things. Yemi Mercado is the most experienced champion at 122 pounds. She's got more pro fights, more rounds in the bank than Ellie, but I don't think she's as talented or as subtle, as adaptable as Ellie. I think that Ellie is going to show the cleaner punches, the cleaner work. I think she's going to counter Yemi Mercado, counter her often, because Yemi does swing quite wide, whereas Ellie's punches are comparatively shorter and tighter, more compact. Her movements are sharper, and she's more adaptable within a fight, and more adaptable and athletic overall. So I like Ellie Scotney to win. Now when it comes to Shernikica Johnson versus Sheeraz Metcalf, I like Shernikica to win. I like her to beat Sheeraz Metcalf in the same fashion that she just beat Nina Hughes, by coming forward, throwing punches and bunches, and applying pressure on the older fighter. The difference between this fight and that fight is Nina Hughes tried to fight fire with fire, but she was ultimately outgunned, whereas Sheeraz is a mover, is a jabber, an outboxer. Though because Sheeraz is many years older than Shernikica Johnson, and because she didn't handle the pressure from Miyo Yoshida all that well in what was their rematch, I anticipate that Shernikica can fight a better version of that fight when the time comes. And this is all set to go down on the undercard of Taylor vs. Serrano 3. The fight between Shernikica Johnson and Sheeraz Metcalf is for all the marbles, all the belts at 118 pounds. It was announced that when Dina Thorslund decided to bow out because she's with child, she vacated her 2 alphabet titles that are now on the line in the Johnson vs. Metcalf fight, making it 4 undisputed. For those not aware, there's never been an undisputed bantamweight champion in the women's bantamweight division in the 4-belt era. Should Shernikica win, she will be the first, making history for herself, for both the New Zealand and Australian boxing scene, as Shernikica was born in New Zealand but is based out of Australia. And winning the fight could effectively set the stage for a rematch between Shernikica Johnson and Ellie Scotney. Shernikica could become an undisputed champion in her very next fight, whereas Ellie still has 2 fights to go. She's got to take care of Yemi Mercado for what are 3 of the 4 major titles at this weight, and then after that, she would have to target Mexico's own newly crowned WBA champion, Mayeli Flores, to become undisputed at Super Bantam. So what would come first? The Flores fight or the Johnson fight? Based on proximity, The Johnson fight is right there for Ellie after the Mercado fight. And at what weight would the fight take place? Would Shernikica move up to 122, or would Ellie move down to 118 for the chance to become a two-weight world champion? These are questions that need answers, but if nothing else, a fight between them in the not-so-distant future is a distinct possibility. It can happen. This wasn't something that was talked about before, them going at it one more time, but because they're both doing so well, and because they're both now with MVP, that's a distinct possibility, and I look forward to it. These are two of my favorite fighters at or around these weights, and I almost don't want them to fight, because somebody's gotta win, and somebody's gotta lose. The last time I went with Ellie Scotney to win a points decision, that's what she did, and I still favor her to win the rematch. Though Shernikica Johnson, she's a good fighter too, adaptable and adjustable in her own right. Will she have learned enough about Ellie Scotney that she could do better in a rematch? I guess there's only one way to find out. Men's super middleweight news: it was officially announced earlier today that Canelo Alvarez versus Terence Crawford has landed on Netflix, and Vegas will host the super fight. It will not be outsourced to Saudi Arabia, which I think lends itself to the fight's overall appeal. The Canelo Alvarez versus Terence Crawford super fight for the Ring Magazine and Undisputed Super Middleweight Championship will take place September 13th in Vegas and will be streamed globally on Netflix at no additional cost to its 300 million plus subscribers. His Excellency Turkey LL Sheikh announced Tuesday. That also lends itself to the fight's overall appeal and its reach. We saw the kind of viewing figures that Jake Paul and Mike Tyson got using this same strategy, this same formula, making the fight readily available to anybody with a Netflix subscription. And it will have the exact same effect on the Canelo versus Crawford fight, arguably making it the biggest fight of the year. Alvarez Boxing's top star will defend his super middleweight crown against Terence Crawford, a fellow future Hall of Famer. Will climb 2 weight classes for the biggest challenge of his career. On September 13th, Canelo and Crawford, 2 legends of boxing, will finally compete against each other in the fight of the century, LL Sheikh said. Alongside Dana White and Sella, we will deliver something truly incredible in Vegas for fans around the world to enjoy through Netflix. The 3-city press tour for the Riyadh season event will kick off on Friday, June 20th in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia at Boulevard City. That's the site where Canelo and Crawford first faced off last month following Alvarez's points win over William Skull, as Crawford watched from ringside, and William Skull was not allowed to leave Saudi and was subsequently beheaded. What? The press tour will continue 2 days later on June 22nd in New York at the Fanatics Fest, where some of the biggest stars in sports will be joined by throngs of fans. The press tour will wrap on Friday, June 27th at the T-Mobile Arena in Vegas. And we all know that Canelo Alvarez is sure to draw a crowd wherever he appears. His weigh-ins alone draw in more people than some guys' fights. The Riyadh season event will be promoted by LL Sheikh and Sella alongside UFC president Dana White. Turkey wants to make the biggest fights that the fans want to see in boxing, and this is right up my alley, said White. Are you kidding me? That's the first boxing fight I'm gonna get to promote is Canelo versus Crawford? It's literally a once-in-a-lifetime fight. Live on Saturday, September 13th, streaming globally on Netflix. 2 of the greatest boxers in the sport will meet in a historic fight from Vegas. A few weeks ago, we heard that Dana wasn't going to be promoting this, but apparently now he is. I feel like Dana promoting this is a big part of how they were able to get Netflix on board. Why? Because they've been back and forth with everything. Initially, we thought that it would land on Netflix. Then for a little while there, it looked like that wasn't going to happen. Initially, we thought that Dana would promote it. Then for a little while there, it looked like he wasn't going to do it. So that when the fight is officially announced, both Netflix and Dana are back in the picture. And I think one has something to do with the other. Alvarez is the Ring's number 8 pound-for-pound boxer and owns the Ring Magazine title at 168. This will be the Mexican icon's 10th defense of his Ring Magazine super middleweight title. I'm sure happy to be making history again, and this time on a Riyadh season card that will be broadcast on Netflix, said Alvarez, 34. On September 13th, I'm ready to show once again that I am the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world. Crawford, the ring's number 3 pound-for-pound fighter, is currently
number 1.
the ring's number 1 boxer at 154. The 37-year-old will move up 2 weight classes to challenge Alvarez. In his lone fight at 154, Crawford, 41-0 with 31 knockouts, defeated Israel Madrimov in August of last year on a Riyadh season show to win the WBO junior middleweight title. My perfect record speaks for itself. I am the best fighter in the world, and no matter the opponent or the weight class, I have always come out on top, Crawford said. On September 13th, my hand will be raised once again as the world watches greatness.
A few passing thoughts.
As many times as we've addressed this fight, the potentiality of it, the X's and O's and everything in between, it didn't really have the big fight feel until today, when it was officially announced and graphics were uploaded, fight posters.
We know the date, the location, we know who's the broadcaster.
The respective factions of fans, Crawford's fans, Canelo's fans, have been at each other's throats, have been at odds with each other ever since this fight became a hot-button topic. But now that it's officially announced, you can expect them to become even more volatile, even more hostile with each other.
All of which lends itself to this fight's appeal and this fight's profile. To make a big fight, to make a super fight, you need 2 super fighters, 2 guys with 2 factions of fans.
And the fight has landed on the biggest platform possible in the modern day and age, Netflix.
It's tantamount to a terrestrial network because it has a terrestrial network's reach. When I say terrestrial network, I'm talking NBC, I'm talking Fox.
WWOR, WPIX. These are networks that every American household has access to at no additional charge, and thus you get the maximum amount of reach. That's basically Netflix now, but on a global scale. Everybody's got Netflix.
Everybody around the world.
Which makes Netflix tantamount to a terrestrial network in the modern day and age with a terrestrial network's reach. So you can imagine what those numbers are going to look like in September. And what's going to be on the undercard?
I've got a few ideas what's going to be on that undercard, if nothing else. A few suggestions.
And we'll talk about that in another video. As stated, for as many times as we addressed the possibility of this fight, it didn't yet have the big fight feel until it was made official and certain details were finalized earlier today. That it's landing on Netflix, it's gonna be in Vegas.
It's gonna be on Netflix.
So I guess now it seems more real and more palpable, that before it was just something to talk about, whereas now the fight is upon us.
And the world will be watching.
Elsewhere in the super middleweight division, Hamza Shiraz targets superstardom in Edgar Berlanga clash. Hamza Shiraz faces a career-defining moment on July 12th. One that his manager, Spencer Brown, believes could transform him into a superstar. Shiraz moves from middleweight to super middleweight to take on New Yorker Edgar Berlanga at the Louis Armstrong Stadium in Queens, New York, in just under 5 weeks. The pressure is mounting for Shiraz. After a lackluster performance in his last fight 4 months ago, Shiraz battled Carlos Adames for the WBC middleweight world title, but Adames dominated and was unfortunate to leave Riyadh with only a draw, retaining his belt. An impressive victory on July 12th could re-establish Shiraz's world title credentials.
It's a real tough ask for Hamza, this one. Brown said of the Berlanga fight, it's a big fight. Turkey LL Sheik has given him a real tough fight, but if he comes through, we know what's going to happen. He's going to be a world superstar. He's going to fight all the big names. Before the Adames fight, speculation swirled about a potential domestic clash with Chris Eubank Jr. Brown says their team remains eager for the matchup. I think we want it, but it's whether or not Chris does. He's just come through a war with Conor Benn. It's a more natural weight for him. It's his natural weight.
So there's potential for a Chris Eubank Jr. fight if Hamza beats Edgar, but there's also potential for a Canelo Alvarez fight. You figure that if Hamza Shiraz beats Edgar Berlanga, who's a common opponent between him and Canelo, that will then validate him as a super middleweight for knocking out a guy that Canelo did not knock out. Eubank Jr. may or may not tune in on July 12th, but Shiraz knows a loss to Berlanga could jeopardize any chance of facing the 35-year-old. There is that to consider, and that Hamza Shiraz's name was previously attached to a potential Canelo fight. In the second half of the year, a Eubank versus Ben rematch could materialize, and Brown expects clarity soon. I spoke to Conroy the other day, and they said they were working through it. I think they put the rematch clause into play. I think it's going to take time. Eddie Hearn and all the promoters will get in, and hopefully we see it again, because it was unbelievable. It's also down to Turkey LL Sheik and what he wants to do. He's the man behind it all. I think they're on with it, and we'll see an answer shortly.
Chris just went life or death with a guy who spent most of his career in the welterweight division. So I don't know that he's in a hurry to fight a guy as big or as strong as Hamza, in spite of his lackluster showing with Carlos.
Remember that they already offered Chris Eubank Jr. that fight, and he turned it down. Ran over to Boxer.
Remember?
And now that he's made all this money with Conor Benn, a naturally smaller fighter than Hamza, surely, and naturally smaller than him, I think he would sooner fight Conor again before he rolls the dice with Hamza Shiraz. Not saying that it's not a big fight. I think it would be.
Eubank versus Shiraz? Yeah, but it's also very risky. And Chris, God bless him, has always been a risk-averse fighter.
That he's managed to make as much money as he's made throughout his career, being so risk-averse, is the direct byproduct of nepotism. He's a nepo baby.
His surname has opened a lot of doors for him, enough that he doesn't have to fight a Hamza Shiraz to make a lot of money. So I'm not sure that happens. Even if Hamza beats Edgar, the question is, can Hamza beat Edgar?
Edgar Berlanga, a naturally bigger fighter than Carlos Adames is, and you see how Carlos had Hamza looking.
Oh, is Edgar gonna have him looking?
There is Edgar's natural size and would-be punching power to consider, but there's also his boxing acumen, or the lack thereof. That even if Carlos Adames made Hamza Shiraz look bad, Carlos Adames is a better boxer than Edgar Berlanga in terms of fundamentals, in terms of X's and O's.
So, even if Carlos made Hamza look pretty shit, that doesn't necessarily mean that Edgar can do the same thing. It's not like Edgar is a carbon copy of Carlos. He's just bigger.
There is a chance that Edgar packs a big enough punch that he could hurt Hamza Shiraz, but at the same time, we've seen Edgar look human on plenty of occasions. He looked human getting knocked down by Marcelo Coceres. He looked human with Steve Rolls. He looked human with Romer Angulo.
Even if Hamza looked human in his last fight, how many times have we seen Edgar look human? And look at the kind of guys they gotta muster up for him to look halfway decent.
Look at the last guy that he fought. Where the hell did they find that guy?
So it's a double-edged sword, to where even if Hamza didn't look good in his last fight, there's been plenty of times where Edgar didn't look good.
I would not count out Hamza Shiraz just yet. Not based on the Adames fight, because it's not like Edgar is a carbon copy of Adames. He's not. So maybe Hamza Shiraz can do us all a favor and get rid of this poser, get rid of this pretender, Edgar Berlanga.
Maybe, because Edgar's not a good fighter.